What's up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt Marchesini. Tonight, we're back. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. Whoa, those are some crazy stuff happening on Matt's background there. But we're back with a vengeance as we discuss the K-State men's hoops team's big win at home against KU in the Sunflower Showdown, hopefully turning the tides of the season after a rough four-game losing skid. And the ladies team is coming off of back-to-back losses to Texas and Oklahoma and looks to rebound against the Oklahoma State Cowgirls at Bramlage on Saturday. But we are on it's the day after KU came into Bramlage, got absolutely taken to overtime, worn out. What happened in that game? I went into it thinking that it was not going to be a very good matchup and that we were going to get shellacked. And whether that was the reverse jinx or me just being honest about how I felt about the Cats at the time, did not think that the Cats were going to win that matchup. So, I'm still riding high. How are you boys feeling after the Sunflower Showdown round one?
I was very confident. It's been written in the stars that I was the only one here that was confident and was not scared of KU at all. I wasn't. It's just it all balances out. It's weird. 0-4 skids. I heard it from everybody that this team is shit. And honestly, we were playing like it. But think about what this team was last year. There was a time at some point in the middle of, I think, either the end of January, beginning of February, where they lost 4 or 5. And basically what happened after we beat KU, it was just we lost 4 or 5. So maybe, like you said, Bob, this could be the tides turning. I'm hoping it's leaning that way and that it's just not a one-off because we have a workable schedule in this back half. What do you think, Matt?
Um, I I don't think I can compare this team to last year, just because, uh, like, this team is just not even it does not hit the stratosphere of anything close to an offense this season as to what we saw last season. I mean, I'm just being quite honest. As the most pessimistic one in this group, and as someone who wore all black to this game thinking we were getting murdered, it was quite a surprise to see a team really kind of take a positive step after a four-game stretch that was, quite frankly, like it was really, really bad from an effort perspective. What it looked like just watching these games, right? The Oklahoma game and the Oklahoma State game were just incredulously bad from an effort perspective, at least what it looked like. And so there going into last night, I did not have any confidence in this team, which is not fair, but you also, like, as a fan, when we watch our teams pretty consistently every single game. Also, I cannot fathom that you are doing a Rubik's cube right now while recording this show. Um, like, the confidence level in this team just was not there because they did not have a pulse offensively, and although on the defensive side, that's been kind of our saving grace in some games this season, but the effort and the ability to rebound and just all of these things were coming together, and you saw a team going into Monday where although it's a rivalry game and all this stuff, there just wasn't I didn't feel any momentum was in our way to try and win that game. So,
It wasn't. It was bad.
yeah. Yeah.
We could call a spade, and we can, we had rants earlier in the year where we were scared, but we were still, we only lost like 2 or 3 games or 2 games at that point, and we were going because we knew the potential of this team was high, and we had expectations. So the rants were there because we wanted this team to do good, and then the they kind of like Tang used it last year where they told on themselves and said that, and this year at the beginning of the Big 12 conference, we're 4-1. The expectation is set. The bar is raised. People are are coming out and saying things that, aren't usually said for back-to-back years where are we going to compete? And Matt, you called it at the beginning. You said this could be a top third of the conference team. And then the wheels fell off. We knew we weren't talented enough on offense. And when you're not giving the effort, like you were saying, on defense, you weren't rebounding, and the turnovers are not going to get solved. People had every right to turn away from this team. But like you saw last night, when the things click, magic can happen. And if our three main guys are scoring and we're playing solid defense, and even if the bench comes out and contributes a little bit, we could beat anybody in the league.
I think that's fair. You had mentioned a little bit ago about the schedule and what's to come. It really, I mean, at this point, we have to go. We're 5-5 in conference right now, so they're going to have to finish the rest of the season basically at 500. That's a very tough thing for me because of just some of the inconsistencies that we see, and you can't expect Tyler Perry to have 26-point games every night. Albeit the way that he plays in the second half, you never know.
And realistically, what did he do the last 4 games? Even during the skids, he's been putting up numbers. Yeah. They might be garbagey, hollow numbers, but and for how bad people treat him online, he's still putting up, 19, 16, 20, 26 points like every game. He's contributing, putting buckets. Is it efficient? And is he getting help? No, but he's still contributing. Now, is it the other guys that are going to do it? And I know what you're going to say, Matt. Will they do it?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the upcoming schedule probably here in a little bit, but this is going to be very hard. I think this schedule is it's albeit you win your home games, you're in a good position, but we have some good teams coming into Bramlage, and we go on the road to some good teams too. So it'll be a very interesting last handful of games. I'm excited now because we won. If we lost, I would have been absolutely not excited about anything basketball related with the men. But KU, man, that game was it was an incredible atmosphere. And it's a classic Bramlage atmosphere, especially in a rivalry game like that. But when people come together like that and, they're cheering for that team, there are moments in my K-State kind of fandom, I guess, ever since I started going to school, where there are individual games where the atmosphere, any team could have come in there and they would have lost. I remember 2010, Jacob Pullen, the Texas game. Like, number 1 team in the country came in and they lost. Literally, you could have thrown any team in there that night and they were going to lose that game. There are handfuls of games where I see that. And that atmosphere last night was one where I truly believe not many teams would have been able to walk in there and win, no matter the matchup, no matter what. So you have to give a lot of credit to the students and to everybody who, just played a real big part in that.
Is it repeatable?
That type of atmosphere, like against
like this season, are we gonna see it again this season?
The Iowa State game, I think, especially it's the last game of the year, senior day. I think with what occurred in Ames, there is going to be a lot of hatred in that building. The last game of the
vitriol.
Season. Yeah, and it's quite possible because Iowa State could be a top 15 team still, right? And so no matter who's coming in, a top 15 team like that on a Saturday, fake Patty's Day.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
It's going to be a absolute disaster. The
Yeah,
game's at
Iowa State,
1:30.
they may not leave Manhattan alive.
They Iowa State, it's going to be a festival in there, and it's not a good festival. Let me tell you.
I I have
Yeah.
I have a question for the two of you. So, obviously, a 4-game losing skid. The team looked pretty awful at most points throughout that losing skid. And then you cap that off with a loss at Oklahoma State against the last place team in the conference. What did you like about the KU matchup where, there's obviously some things that had to get cleaned up because KU is a top 5 team. We're not just playing some slouches there. What did you like about what was cleaned up, and specifically, what do you think they focused on between the matchup in Stillwater and then the matchup against KU?
I think that, first of all, we're not as bad as we showed. I mean, that wasn't a I mean, just the culmination of the games before that Oklahoma State game led to a lot of nastiness, but we're not as bad as that game. And KU is nowhere near as good as they were versus Houston at home, where they shot 70% against arguably the best team, defensive team in the country. So, things were going to have to balance out. There's no way they were going to be able to keep that, and we were not going to show up as bad as we had been playing. So, what I liked, they have a short bench. We don't have the deepest bench, but we can go into that bag. So, if we could manage, like McCullough was mostly the most important thing, I think, in that game. We had to guard McCullough because we hadn't seen a big yet, like Hunter Dickinson, but there's only really so much he can do. He's not going to get the transition buckets. He's not really a banger from 3, so he's not getting those extra points, and he's not crazy physical where he's getting a ton of and one. So he takes 18 shots and gets 21 points. You kind of live with that. He's going to get his numbers, but if you can hold him to a reasonable, he's not dropping a 40 biscuit on you, and you guard McCullough, I think that's the recipe to beat KU because they don't really have anybody outside of that. They have that stat with their point guard where if he scores more than 10, they're basically undefeated. He's a good player, but he's not somebody that scares you on the offensive end. He gets a lot of stuff done on them for the facilitating in the defensive end. And then KJ Adams, I mean, he's a football player that plays basketball. So, and you held him to 2 rebounds. So what more it was the perfect storm, like Matt was saying. And we had the crowd behind us. So perfect game, in my opinion.
I think if you look at it statistically, I still have no idea how we won. And
Why?
when I look at it this way, the one thing that okay, let me preface with this. If I looked at the stat sheet and I saw one of the key things was rebounding. We out rebounded them by 10 in this game. I would have not expected that before. We did a really good job from an offensive rebounding perspective of, getting some key offensive rebounds. We had 9 in the game. But the piece that, if we think of through the season, what has been a kind of a killer for us, it's been our 3-point defense. And this game, KU went 3 for 15 in this game. And not that they live or die by the 3, but they are a pretty good 3-point shooting team. And defensively, we hit another level and trying to make sure that they did not have many uncontested 3-point shots in this game. So I just there's a lot of things here. I mean, I think of the turnovers. We're the worst turnover team in the country.
It's not even close.
It is insane to me that you get into the mid-tier, the middle part of Big 12 play, and you are not getting an improvement on the turnovers. And it's been a problem. I mean, the past 4 games, they've averaged 16 turnovers a game. And that's not including the KU game. like 16 turnovers in this game. Like,
Yeah.
This team has the capability to be better, and they just can't get over the turnover hump, and that is what puts you in bad positions in games.
What do you think those turnovers are, though? Because I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 turnovers that, not counting this KU game, because the KU game was like, there was a lot of live ball turnovers that, kept KU in the game with, that's how they got their run at the beginning of the second half, where they went on that 11-0 run and it stretched it out. That's where the live ball turnovers kill you. But like in other games, I feel like it's a lot of just boneheadedness. It's not like crazy turnovers. It's like stepping out of bounds, traveling, like not live ball turnovers, but it's just silly fundamental stuff, which I think can get cleaned up. The live ball turnovers where teams, we're trying to make passes that aren't there. That's stuff that's hard to fix because our team is aggressive and Tang lets the team play. Like, he's going to let you just go out there and, if you see a pass, like Kaluma was for a good example for me, where it's a pass that Kaluma has in overtime. Will McNair flashes to the paint. He's wide open. Kaluma throws, I don't know what kind of pass it was, but it hits so hard off the backboard. Like, it almost breaks the backboard. And it's confusing, but those are the aggressive passes that you want because he sees something. He sees what McNair flash. That's an easy bucket if he connects. It's a layup. But the passes aren't connecting. So how do you stop that? Do you want them not to try to make those passes? Because that's when you get into trouble with Tyler Perry at the end of the shot clock because nobody's tried to make a cut. Nobody's tried to make a pass. Nobody's done anything. And he has to shoot it from 40 feet or throw a prayer hook up or something.
You know how to solve it. Every time there's a turnover during a scrimmage in practice, you run fucking suicides. I don't know how else you clean that up, dude.
Our team would be dead. They would die.
Well, something's got to give because they turn it over all the time.
Yeah, but I think
the sloppiest basketball I've ever seen. It drives me bananas.
I think the numbers are conflated though because it's
conflated or inflated.
Both. Inflated because you're gonna get those turnovers where Will McNair travels, and it's a phantom travel. One of them was a phantom travel. He didn't travel, but they called it. So what are you gonna do? I mean, how do you cut that out? Don't travel. But you're not gonna count that. You're not gonna count that. I wouldn't count it.
If you are the worst turnover team in the country, you can't be saying that like it's phantom travels and shit.
Some of it is, though, in my opinion.
I don't think it's inflated. Not from the basketball team I've been watching this year.
It's
like, go back to the what game were we on the road? Oklahoma State. Was that the one where we had a bunch of turnovers just like at the very beginning?
We had a pretty decent start in that game. It was the Oklahoma game where we didn't score. I mean, we didn't score a point for the first 10 minutes in that game.
Okay,
and a lot of
you're getting shots up, but you're not turning the ball over, and you're still. I think it's more play hard. Like Cam Carter drives into the. I'm thinking of the Oklahoma State game. He drives at the very beginning of the game, and it's a fast break, but there's nobody running with him, so he kind of like throws it out of nowhere. That's a turnover, but that's solvable. Run harder, and you'll get some. You won't turn that ball over. I'm for sure.
You're giving the benefit of the doubt, but it's still bad.
I think these turnovers are turnovers that aren't going to kill you in the long run. That's why we're still in some of these games with the high turnover numbers. Would you like to see us get shots up from these instead? Yeah, but you're not always going to. That's not possible.
But you're also not. You're not going to have a shooting night like you did last night every night either, because when you have a piss poor shooting effort and you're turning it over 16 times, you're not going to be in any ball game at that.
That's fair. That's fair.
And with turnovers, it also, you have to look at the other team as well. If you turn the ball over in an opportune spot and they get a transition opportunity,
live ball turnover.
That is I mean, Kansas yesterday had, I believe, 25 points off turnovers in that
I think it
game.
was 21. Was it 21 or
Okay,
25? It doesn't matter. That's a lot.
doesn't
That's
matter.
a lot.
That's a lot. That's what so like in these games, the number of turnovers is directly giving the other team opportunities to take advantage of a transition bucket, and those add up over time.
Sometimes, though. That's only sometimes. Go to the box score for Texas Tech. That was a 59-60 game, I think. That's what the final score was. We had just as many turnovers in that as the KU game, but they weren't live ball turnovers. They're the traveling. They're the throwing it out of bounds.
Yes.
So you can have that many turnovers and still be in a game and not have to shoot well. It's all dependent on it's the effort ones. Like if you're driving into the lane and you get fouled, but they don't call it and it goes out of bounds, that's a turnover, but you're not going to say that's a turnover, in my opinion. That's a good possession. It just didn't end the way you wanted it to. That's basketball. For me, that's basketball. You live with some turnovers.
It is. But turning the ball over means you have to be better in other areas to make up for those turnovers. And
That's true.
From an offensive perspective, this team is not in a position to give up these turnovers and be good offensively. I mean, you could think, hey, we scored 75 points in this game last night. This was a game where the offense did produce in some big moments in this game, but it's quite easy to see every game that this team needs a pure passer at point guard. The misses on pick and roll in the offense, the vision is not there. The passing is not crisp, getting it inside. Some of the lineups, I just wonder. I mean, I struggle with, I've said this before, I struggle with David Gasson in the game with Will McNair. And you see it in a game last night where David Gasson is not an outside shooter. And so KU can play defenders closer to the paint. And so that doesn't allow your guards to get as much opportunity inside to maybe get a layup in there, be aggressive inside, because in many cases they're double teamed out there. And if you pass it out to Gasson, he's not necessarily, he took 1-3 last night, but there isn't a lot of opportunity out there for him to score. And so the lineup yesterday, having Jarrell Colbert in there, I think changes the game a little bit. I thought Will McNair was pretty good because he's a big body and he was very aggressive with Hunter Dickinson. But Jarrell Colbert, and even though from a stat, you could look at his stat sheet and wonder, okay, he was a huge player last night against Hunter Dickinson. And I felt that him being in the game gave a little bit more openings for everybody else, because on the inside, I feel like he's a more athletic player. He's a little bit quicker. And I think if we had a pure passer at point guard, you would see him more successful in the pick and roll than we've seen him all year. I really do.
I agree. He's a definite lob threat on the pick and roll. I feel like if we had a player that could get off of those screens and get to the lane where it forces the defense to have to pick between the layup on the help side instead of, kind of not having to do anything because the trail defender doesn't have to help because the primary guy on the ball screen is getting in there. It would help, but we don't have that guy. I think Cam Carter should be the primary ball handler, but when he's the primary ball handler, he's seeking for his own shot. He's not looking to facilitate. I think Tyler Perry does do a good job facilitating, but I think it takes away from his game, which is another scorer. Because you see in the second half, he's not looking to facilitate. He's trying to get that ball and he's trying to put it in the hoop, which is good for us. But I will say this about David Gasson, because I'm not going to take the David Gasson slander. We have to have him out there. He's arguably second best defender on the team. Like you gotta give some to get some, because you can't have David Kassan out there airballing threes, but he is out there doing work on the defensive end, which helps because of the length. He's basically another damn near 7-footer in there in terms of length to help in the post, to help reject, and he helps on the perimeter. I think you got to have David Gasson in there. He's instrumental to this team, but it's just he did a lot of good stuff driving the ball, I thought, in this game, especially because they were laying off him so much that he could kick it out. He could do things. I think one of the Cam Carter threes was off of a David Gasson drive. This team will find its way. I just we got the pieces. It's just, I don't know.
It's the fact of the matter is the offense that they have been instilling in it this year is not a fit for the current personnel that are on this team.
I think Day-Day Ames could be that.
I think Day-Day Ames could be that, but he turns the ball over.
Yeah, he's a freshman point guard.
He's a freshman point guard. He turns the ball over, so the trust isn't there to be able to run that entire offense. Despite the fact that I think if you kind of play him by fire, trial by fire, the risk could definitely be, the reward could definitely be bigger than the risk.
Yeah.
But it's all about the personnel and what they have. Glover was probably going to be that more of a point of kind of a passer. Even just with him in there, I can see the vision of wanting to put this offense together, and it's the personnel right now doesn't match probably the vision that they have. But
you know what? Ain't none of them guys coming back. Ain't none of them gonna strap it up. So we got what we got, and I think it's good enough to win. I think it's an NCAA team. It's a tournament team, in my opinion.
We've got some listener questions on that, so let's table this for now. I do have some points that I want to revisit when we start talking about kind of the three big guys on the team, but I want to talk a little bit more about the upcoming matchups. So this Saturday, we've got BYU. We're on the road in Provo. BYU is currently number 21st in the country. They are 16-5 overall with a 4-4 record in conference. And then after that, next week, we're playing TCU. That's going to be at the Bram as opposed to on the road. And they are also 16-6 with a 5-4 record in the conference. I need to double check that. But
what day of the week is BYU? Is that
BYU
Saturday?
is Saturday and TCU is Saturday. So we've got a break in between the two.
Big yeah, 12. We have played a lot of games, haven't we?
Yeah. Chef, are you getting ready for that 10 p.m. tip Eastern time on Saturday?
That's gonna be tough. Luckily I am a mailman, so we don't deliver on Sunday, so I can stay up. I don't mind. I don't mind it.
But anyway, thinking about those two matchups, what are you looking for when we go on the road against a BYU team that kind of lives and dies by the three? And then the following week, we can maybe talk about the TCU game in more depth next week. So let's focus on BYU for now.
Yeah, I think BYU is our sole focus, and you said it. And Matt brought it up earlier. Well, to my point, Saturday we got BYU, and they live, like you said, and die by the three. At home, it's been hit or miss. They're not the best home. As much as we've talked up the home court advantage BYU has, they haven't been the most dominant home team this season. Cincinnati came in there, spanked them. Who else went in there? Houston came in there and spanked them. Houston's a different animal, but in those games, they're not firing from the three and not hitting them. If they're not hitting them, you got a chance. Matt, you brought up earlier our defense versus KU from the three-point line. Will we be able to run them off of that line and force them to, facilitate to people in the paint that aren't the greatest finishers? I think that's the strategy. I hope that's what happens. I think you can't get into a track meet with them. If you can get where it's possessions are limited and they're, firing these threes and you're controlling the glass, dude, you could sneak a road win, a huge ranked road win. I'm confident in this game because, well, it depends on what happens tonight. Because I think do they play tonight or tomorrow? They play tonight versus Oklahoma, which is a
Right
really
now.
really big game. So if BYU, like I said, the balancing, if they're firing tonight and they're hitting threes, I got a feeling that we could see a little lull in their 3-point shooting. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know what channel the game's on. I'll put it on, but I'm feeling confident. BYU threes. I called them the more religious Duke. That's what I called them, with lower academic standards.
That's a fair comparison. I've heard that comparison.
Oh my
Like
God.
Duke.
Look, I'm gonna definitely go into that game thinking we're losing by like 20. There's a couple reasons. One, I think for everything that happened yesterday, there is the potential for a letdown, and I do think they're a bad matchup for us. 3-point shooting aside, as you said, they've lost 2 games at home. I think the Cincinnati game was a little bit of a fluke. Just my reason being, they did have an off night that night, and I just felt. I
that
remember
a
watching
fluke?
that game. I'm pulling up the stats on this game, but I remember watching this game. Like BYU went 13 for 46 in that game on threes. Like,
whoa, that's so many threes.
That's so many threes. They went 13 for 46 behind the arc in that game. Insane. And I just have a bad, I don't know. I feel like it's a letdown game. BYU is a tough place to play, despite Chef. Like, yes, they've lost 2 games, and yes, they lost to Houston. We can check that one off, but that's a tough place to play. I mean, on the road this season, this is probably the toughest environment, right? Oh no, you know what? Houston that was a tough place to play.
That we've witnessed so far. I mean, I think Tech was a bigger
Tech
and Ames. Hilton was crazy. Hilton was nuts.
I took Ames out of my head because they don't deserve any brain cells. Fuck.
Ironically, in the game right now that that the people that are listening already have seen and saw all these stats, BYU's only taking 12 threes. Oklahoma's taking 19. Kind of nuts
42-41, huh?
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm just not convinced that the home court advantage is all that for BYU. I mean, I guess they have a really big stadium that they pack out, but
I mean, I think the other thing to think about is in the Big 12 this season, how tough it has been to win on the road.
Yeah, it's true.
For every team.
True.
I mean, yes, yesterday's game proves that they have the capability to compete against any team in the country. And on the road this season has not been friendly. Not just to us, but most teams in the Big 12. So I don't have a lot of confidence just because it's a road game in the Big 12. It's a road game in the Big 12.
I got a question for both of you. I got a question for both of you. Damn, hold on. I kind of forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you.
Cube. Gotcha.
No, BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston. I think Houston is a different animal than those other 3. But do we see the grind of the Big 12 start to hit any of these teams? Because, UCF is kind of a pleasant surprise. Cincinnati as well. I mean, they're 500 in the conference, I think. So do we see a wall get hit by any of these teams, especially for a team like BYU that has to, the travel is kind of kicking their asses a little bit. I mean, UCF too and Cincinnati, but do we see the wall for these teams get hit?
I think it depends. I think we'll find out. I don't think we have any idea if it will or not.
Right.
They've never played a conference schedule as grueling as this. Any of these teams have.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of in wait and see mode with that. It didn't really
UCF,
happen for the
yeah.
football teams.
That's what I was going to bring up.
7, 8, 9.
If
Sorry,
anything, those football teams got better throughout the season. But
I think so. That's what I thought. You know, we were talking football season last year, and you know, bringing up these teams, whether they would have the numbers and the athletes to compete night in and night out in a power conference. I think these basketball teams and the football teams have proven that, you know, they have horses as well. I just wondering if you know, because we're more than halfway through, but will the wall be hit? Because a team that shoots so much, the legs can kind of go out on a team like BYU. You know, you live and die by the 3, but that's a lot of shots to get up, and and they play fast too. So will the wall be hit? I kind of hope that we see the first little crumblings of it in Provo when K-State goes into town.
I mean, college basketball is a more parity type sport, where upsets occur more frequently. I think of a team like UCF. The fact that we played them the first game of the year, they looked absolutely abysmal, and since then have obviously beaten KU. You know, they beat Texas, beat Oklahoma. They have a tough schedule, I believe. So in their next 9 games, they play Texas Tech twice. They play Iowa State and Houston, but they get Iowa State and Houston at home.
Damn.
That's a team that could definitely kind of probably recede a little bit. But the way that the Big 12 looks this season, I mean,
it's
again,
a
it's
mess.
hard to, it really is. And truthfully, I don't think we're going to actually see how good the Big 12 is until we get to the NCAA tournament, because
we're not getting a 1 seed unless Houston does it.
Look, watching Houston in person, and I mean, in a majority of their games this season, they are very much a team that can make the Final Four because of how good their defense is. And they have guys that can go off and make shots, but that defense is really, really good. I would be shocked if they were not I would be shocked, number one, if they didn't make the Elite 8, but I think they're a Final Four team. I would put them in my Final Four. And the rest of their schedule, the rest of the season for Houston is, I mean, at home, they get Texas, Iowa State, Cincinnati, and KU, and then they go on the road to Cincinnati, Baylor, will be a tough game, Oklahoma, and UCF.
Oh, that sounds like a murderer's row. What are you talking about?
No,
that sucks.
That does not.
Are you kidding? Who has a tougher schedule than that?
I would rather.
I feel like his point was more about the fact that they got so many of those hard teams at home, like Texas, KU.
Yeah, I mean,
and then they're only
Texas is not what? No, Texas is not. Texas, what are they? 3-6 in the conference?
They're getting beat by Iowa State, but
bad.
On a good night, they're better than anybody else in the conference. On a bad night, they're as bad as Oklahoma State.
That doesn't. This is the thing. I was going to say this, that 12th place is what, 2 games out of first. It's been
14th. 14th place is 2 or 4. Yeah, 2, 3. I forget.
I think we only have, what do we have, 14 teams in the conference? I think it's
14th place is 2.5 games behind us. We are only 1.5 games behind first place. I think 4 games.
But what I was saying was 12th. 12th is literally 2 games out of first.
Yeah.
So it's it's been a level playing field. Everybody can beat everybody. Like Matt was saying, he's nervous about these road games, but that's one. If you sneak one out, if you get one of these road victories, dude, that helps so much. I don't know if we're gonna talk resume tonight, because it is very sad times for K-State. You know, we're the next of the next of the next 4 out. So I don't know if you want to talk about it, but road wins help so much, especially a team like BYU because their net ranking is absurd. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to Saturday, and I got my toes and my fingers crossed.
Well, we can't talk resume. So K-State's record's 15-8, 5-5 in the conference. You're 7th in the Big 12, barring whatever changes happen tonight. 1.5 games separate K-State from Houston at the top, and then 2.5 games separate them from 14th place with Oklahoma State, who has what, a 1-8 record, 1-7 record in the conference. So 72nd in KenPom, 79th in the net. Those are real bad numbers when you're talking tournament, selection committee, that kind of stuff. You're 2-3 in the quad one. Those 2 quad one wins we all know are Baylor and KU right now. You're 4-4 in the quad 2, 3-1 in quad 3, and 6-0 in quad 4. But when you look at the resume at a glance, it doesn't look great. When you see the wins come against Baylor and KU, okay, fantastic. But then you get shellacked by Houston, you get beat by Oklahoma State, and you've got some bad losses on there, is what I'm getting at. So how are you feeling about the resume, and on when selection Sunday happens, what are we doing when we look at our watches after the selection show and we're like, oh, I guess they went through all 68 picks?
If we're not in the field, I'm praying that we're in Dayton. Selfishly. And this is my thing. Tang said 9-9 get you in the tournament. I think, could you find 9 wins on the schedule and get you into the tournament? It would be, what would our record be? Would it be 19 and 12?
Yeah, 19 and 12.
Okay, so let's say that. Then you got and if you're 9-9 in the conference, you're not getting the first 4 bye in the Big 12 tournament. Those games help. So if you win maybe 2 in the Big 12 tournament, I think you're a tournament team. But you can't go 9-9 and then lose in the first round of the Big 12 tournament and expect to get in.
I always forget about the conference tournament implications on the selection committee. Yeah.
That helps so much. And you kind of, as bad as we were at the beginning and all the losses that you have, it's a double-edged sword, because you don't want to be like middling to where you don't get to play a certain amount of games in the Big 12 tournament and then have to play one of the top dogs and to get knocked out in the first. So it's weird. It's just a weird conundrum to be in. But I think our resume, if we 9-9, I believe in what Tang says. Maybe Lenardi doesn't believe in what Tang's saying, but I believe. I got crazy faith.
Apparently so. I mean, so the last 9 games we have, as of right now, 4 of those games are against ranked opponents. So we play BYU twice, at KU, and Iowa State. Obviously, if we win our home games, that would mean we beat 2 top 25 teams who are high in the net, which is helpful. Really, on the rest of our schedule, the worst games would be West Virginia at home and at Cincinnati. You really have to find games at this point that don't kill you. What are the games that are not going to kill you, and play your cards right. So, I mean, obviously, like, look, if you win on Saturday, that's a huge piece of this puzzle. I don't think I just don't, I don't know, but I don't have a lot of faith right now in making the NCAA tournament. I think they're just, the Oklahoma State loss is a really glaring loss, even though it's on the
Is it?
road.
I'm not buying that. One reason. I think the Oklahoma State loss is not nearly as bad as what the USC loss is.
That's probably accurate.
So I think people are freaking out about the Oklahoma State loss. I think we need to be freaking out about the USC loss before we worry about the Oklahoma State loss, because I think
Miami's not looking good either. And Miami, they just got beat by Virginia, and they scored the fewest points they have in like 50 years or something.
Yeah, that was they scored 38. That was tough. Our good wins are not looking like good wins, and our losses that we thought were like decent losses are turning into like not great losses. So that's where I'm kind of hesitant on the 9-9. But I don't know, because you want to schedule tough in the non-con, but at this point you're kind of just like, maybe you should schedule teams that suck, because
it's what Iowa State did. That's why their net ranking in KenPom and everything is so inflated.
Because
you the shit out of all these teams and I don't know, fucking bumfuck Montana State or something.
You're dependent on like these teams that you think that you hold in such high esteem, and then they fucking they don't carry their weight and they suck. So now it just hurts you even more. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is with these non-con games, those happen in November, and albeit you look at an entire resume, there's a lot of recency bias with it too, right?
Of course.
And so that's why when I say games that could hurt us in the last 9 or 8 games that we have, there's 2 games that could really put a nail in the coffin. And if you lose at home to West Virginia, that's bad. You're on the road at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a pretty good team. I mean, they're not as good as some of the other ones that we're going to be playing, but it would be really nice to win that one. We don't have another Oklahoma State game that we got to worry about or anything like that. I mean, I think you have the cards, you have your cards right now, and you got to figure out, okay, if it's 9-9 in conference, I'll assure you we're going to be hearing a lot of Jerome Tang the week of selection, because he's going to be playing up the Big 12 card very much the entire week and hope that card and the respect of the conference sticks. I think if you go 10-8, that is going to make you feel a little bit better. But
yeah, it will.
The 9-9, people are like, he continues to say 9-9, and you have to respect that, because this is, yes, the toughest conference in America. But quite frankly, I don't see a 9-9 record and think, oh yeah, we're in. I just don't. I don't think it's like last year, like West Virginia got in 8-10. Like, I don't see it.
My thing is, for the selection, how do they divide it up? Because USC, this is what I go back to. USC was our first game, and you lose, and they were top 10, like top 15 in the country at the time. How can you knock the team that lost to them and then like retroactively like go 4 months in advance and say, that was a pretty bad loss? Well, not at the time. Like, how do we do
it? You just said it was the worst loss. You're doing that right now.
No, I'm doing it because that's how I think. But like, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I mean, here's the thing, like, it's a committee that uses analytics and the eye test and things along those lines to make decisions, right? Yeah. And that's why, from a recency bias perspective, like, games that are occurring in March at the end of Big 12 play going into the conference tournament, those are going to be games that you're going to probably see a little bit more of a buzz about. But they're in the room and they're looking at, oh yeah, USC is 9-13 right now. He's obviously going to be getting fired. But like, at the time, like, you scheduled it, you're not expecting that. But that's why the end of the Big 12 play, this is an important stretch, and you have to try and find ways to differentiate yourself, right? And so it's going to be important. Like you got to, you win your games at home, then yeah, you put yourself in a conversation for 9-9. But I don't think 9-9 is going to get them in. I don't. They'll need some help. Like they'll have to have a run in the Big 12 tournament.
Crazy Faith won 9-9. You're on the bubble, I think, depending on who you beat. Because it depends on depends on what 4 other games we get. Are we getting our home ones? Because our home ones are BYU,
West Virginia,
They stink.
TCU,
They
TCU,
stink.
and Iowa State.
That would be a good win. So 2 good wins at home, and then the rest are losses on the road to pretty good teams. It's tough. It's so hard to figure out what combination is the
We're
best
losing
for
you.
you, because you don't want to lose to West
God.
Virginia at home. Then as a
Robo
dope.
Chef.
No. Am I back?
Yeah, I think so.
Am I back? Am I back?
Better be. You better be.
I'm here. I don't know. I don't know what I was going with that. I'm just trying to figure out what the best situation for the team is. I think.
Yeah. We could debate it all day, but why don't we get to a fun part?
Yeah,
Let's get to the listener questions. So we have a question from @WildZeus. Who's K-State's most reliable big? All 3 seem to have their great moments, but there are offensive shortcomings when different combinations of them are on the court due to none of them being able to shoot. That's something Matt was kind of alluding to with kind of the scheme when you have what was it? Will McNair and Jarrell Colbert out there.
David Gasson.
No, Will and David
Gasson.
So who's the most reliable big man? Because statistically, you would look at it and it would be David Gasson. But I liked your point earlier, Matt, about how Jarrell Colbert, he doesn't show up on the stat sheet as much, but he's pretty reliable to do what I would equate to in football and defense, kind of creating havoc, for lack of a better way to put it, on the basketball court. So he's not shown up, but he's getting blocks against guys like Hunter Dickinson as well. I thought that was a nasty block that happened last night. But who's the most reliable big man?
I would say David Gasson, because you know what you're going to get from him on the defensive end. Offensively, he's good around the basket. Obviously, terrible shooter, pretty subpar free throw shooter, so that's not great. But Will McNair has the statistics in Big 12 play, but he is also a walking turnover, and his means of getting points is back to the basket, Shaquille O'Neal right jump hook without the explosiveness. He's not a great rebounder, especially on the offensive end, and defensively he's the worst of all of the 3 you just named. So I think Jarrell Colbert's probably second. If I had to rank them, it would go David Gasson, Jarrell Colbert, Will McNair. But I know why they play Will McNair, but in my opinion, he is third.
I hate this question because, like it's the reliable piece. Like if this was who's the best one, my answer would be different. I would probably agree with you. I think David Gasson is probably our most reliable. Oh, bye, Chef. David Gasson's probably our most reliable big man. You mentioned on the defensive end, he is a great defender, but he is very, very good on the rebounding piece, which is helpful, especially when you do try and kind of run, the type of offense where we don't make shots very often. So, having a guy who can do, or, can be a very good offensive rebounder is always helpful. Jarrell Colbert is a guy that I understand, he's still kind of getting in the grand scheme of things. He's getting into the game. He's one that I'm excited to see how he can develop going into 2024. Is he a guy that could even develop a little bit maybe of an outside shot, and you could really truly run this kind of out offense to where he could be a threat outside. I'm not saying he's Naquan Tomlin by any means, and I don't think you're going to get a guy like that, but with the length and, he looks like he's a guy who can move with the basketball and he's got some pretty good passing chops. I think he's the up and coming guy we could look out for, but I'll say David Gasson on this one.
Chef, what are you drawing there? I didn't realize we had Woody Page on the podcast tonight.
Oh, it's a cat.
Oh, it's a cat. That's cute. So next question comes from @coach_C5, Danny Collins. To chant or not to chant FKU, thoughts on the infamous chant making a return to the octagon? I'll start. I don't care if we chant it or if we do chant it. I hate KU. I've chanted fuck KU in the past many, many, many times. I chanted it at my wedding. I am very pro fuck KU in the right circumstances. But if Coach Tang wants to get rid of it, stick with Coach Tang. I respect him. I want to keep him around. If it keeps him happy, it's great. And, you can have a debate about classiness or whatever, but I mean, I don't really care either way. Every other team in the conference is chanting fuck K-State when we play them on the road. So, shout out to Ames and Lubbock, I guess.
I'm all for it versus KU. I think it should only be used in instances where we're playing that team. So if we're playing KU, drop the FKU, in my opinion. But, like you said, keep Tang happy. He's a purist. He doesn't like that. And I don't blame him. For the people that are all up in arms about, like, the kids are – what about the children? It's Monday at 9 p.m. local time on Monday. They got school tomorrow. They shouldn't be at the game. They should be at home sleeping. So,
wow, Chef's not the fun dad. I can see there. Not bringing his kids to the game. I don't have anything to add. Let the college students do whatever they want and just go from there.
Yeah. Danny asks 2 more questions. The first one, realistic goals for a successful men's basketball season. I would say 9-9 in conference play. And even if you miss the tournament, you make a run in the NIT. I would say that's a relative success.
I disagree. I think it should be NCAA tournament or bust. I'm not a fan of the NIT for this team because there was high praise. And I think they've shown what they can be, even with, lacking pieces or whatnot. I think the tournament is what we should be striving for. So for me, 9-9 conference play, a win in the Big 12 tournament, that gets you to 20, and probably a loss in the Big 12 tournament. So that gets you to 20-13 overall. Give it to me.
If they don't make the NCAA tournament, I'll be really disappointed because with the talent and the guys you brought in, kind of some high profile guys, the expectation is like you're going to compete in conference to make the NCAA tournament. Just my thought. Realistic goal, they got to make the NCAA tournament 100%.
And there's nothing better than seeing the Cats on, like, TBS or TNT or
True TV
or True TV. I mean, it's nothing better than, kicking up on my birthday and watching the Cats versus a Sun Belt team or something like that.
We'll probably that'd be even fucking worse. No, we need to be playing Wake Forest or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are not playing a Sun Belt team in the
give me a mid-tier Pac-12 or ACC team any day.
Dude, I think there's only going to be like 1 or 2 teams from the Pac-12 that might make it. I don't think there might should only be one. Arizona might be the only one.
Oregon's pretty good this year.
What's UCLA up to?
No, they suck. They're not good.
Anyway, last question from Danny. Why do you think not storming the court? What do you think not storming the court means as a program? I loved it. Expect to win. I also love it. I think I've had plenty of good court stormings in my day and enjoyed them very thoroughly. But I do think there's something to be said for what Tang said last year. He said, I'm going to get you 1 court storming, but from now on, you should expect to win as a program. elevate, as Chef writes that down on his whiteboard behind him. So I'm a big fan of not storming the court for those reasons, because I think it makes you, and everybody was kind of raving about it today, like Barstool Sports and all these other accounts were like, whoa, the K-State assistants were telling students not to storm the court. They should realistically expect to win these games. So I like it. I think it gives us some good publicity, and I think it makes the program look like it's more prominent when you look at it from the outside a little bit.
I think it's fun either way. The win is going to happen. They're going to talk about the win no matter what. I think you're going to see there's less criticism if you don't storm the court. If you storm the court, people like, Super Bowl, this, that, or the other. But either way is fun for me because I like the look of a good court storming, especially if it's done right. Get the opposing team off of the court, all that stuff. Delay it by 15 seconds. Who gives a shit? But I like the look of a good court storming, though. It does look good. I like it. It's fun.
Let college kids have fun. No, I'm kidding. No, I think the way that Tang talks about this makes it look like a little bit of a long game of what he's trying to build. And he knows what this program has had in the past. And he knows he sees a vision for what he wants it to be into the future. And, is it a heavy aspiration to think that you want your program to basically be a blue blood? That's kind of what, when he's saying this, that's what he's picturing. And so there's definitely excitement as a fan because you have somebody who believes that you can bring that type of thought process to Kansas State. And this is probably one of those first steps. You have to have your fan base excited about these wins, but not thinking that, it's always an upset. That's the mindset. And, you have to have a fan base, I guess, that always believes we win every game. So I'm doing a really terrible job at that. But I thought it was good yesterday that we did not storm the court because he had said you get one, and the push at the end of that game was like, don't do it. And the coaching staff was like, don't do it. And everybody listened. I mean, truthfully, I feel like that's the big deal out of the whole thing is like they told them not to do it and they didn't do it. So, yeah.
I always took it as one a season, but whatever.
No, I took it as, okay, this is the last court storming that's happening while I'm here.
Yeah. No more.
Anyway, moving on to the next question. So you already mentioned this, Matt, but this comes from my third cousin, Tyler Manis. Shelby wants to know how many of you guys thought we were actually going to win versus KU. I'll just quickly answer that. Chef was the only one that thought we were actually going to win against KU. And the next submission comes from Kyle Reynolds. Matt didn't believe we could win. And yes, he is correct about that. Not a question, though, Kyle.
Period.
Not a question, though, Kyle. So
Period.
Ask us a question next time. The next question comes from Thomas Devaney. % chance you would give the Cats to make the tournament? Unbiased and biased answers. I would say just give one answer and listeners can guess whether it's biased or unbiased. But I'm going to say 12%.
I thought I was going to be low. I was going to say 25%. I think there's a 25% chance.
I think we're at like 50. I think it's a 50-50 shot. We're in the best conference in America. We have every opportunity. We have 8 games versus, 5. I think you said it earlier. I don't know how many ranked teams, but we have opportunity. Just got to seize them. If you get 2 road wins versus ranked teams in this next 8 games, chalk it up. We're in there.
All right. The next question comes from Pete Y'all 14. Why can't Kevin McCullough make free throws?
This
I
is
mean, is
actually
he a
my
KU
What's
fan?
it doing,
KU
baby?
this
fan?
is my coworker who went to KU. Actually,
Oh,
I saw this come through. I don't know why he can't. All things considered, he's like an 81% free throw
yeah.
shooter, and he went 1 for
Good free
5
throw
last
shooter.
night. So here, the crazy thing. So I had all these bets parlays yesterday, and every single one I put Kevin McCullough to score under 17 and a half points because last year he had the worst game in Bramlage of his entire time at KU in that game, and I was like, he is not stepping foot in this arena and had scored more than 18 points. And I'm $160 richer. So thanks, Kevin. If Kevin went on the 1-1, I would have lost all that
Ball
money.
knower. He's a ball knower.
Ball knower.
I think the atmosphere contributed to the free throw line. I always think I think the free throws it's a finicky thing. I'm playing in a men's rec league on Sundays, and we're 3-2 now. Didn't have my best performance last game, and the free throw line is a tough place to be, especially on 1-1s, because that thought, if I miss this first one, I don't get another one. It's always a little tough. It always ratchets you down, hurts a little bit. So Kevin McCullough, he just doesn't have the clutch gene. I want to ask just a quick question off of this. How do we feel about, I feel like student sections being at the end, like at the ends, like baseline? I always like that for the free throw aspect, like waving stuff around or like doing crazy shit.
Only for the free throws, though. That's the only place where it comes in handy, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I do but where the student section for K-State, it's humongous, awesome. So I do like that a lot. But the look of a baseline free throw, long way where you're seeing the students, it's really cool.
I would be curious to hear Matt's opinion on this because you've been to more of these stadiums than I have. Like I'm thinking about the Moody Center, the Foster Pavilion in Waco, as well as Fertitta Center in Houston. Some of those stadiums that have that lower bowl, and I know for sure at Baylor in Texas, they have it kind of wrap around the entire first tier. Do you like that for student sections, or do you think it makes more sense to have either the way K-State has it, where you're along the kind of the sideline, or in the end zones, like Chef is saying, for free throws, things like that?
I mean, I think the way that Houston and Baylor and Texas have done it is allows for them to still make money on premium seating, but still trying to provide a little bit of an atmosphere. Ultimately, at K State, we are very lucky with how the university and the athletic department has really rewarded students by giving them the best seats. That was when I was working for K State. That was the big pitch when we talked about it. Of you have the best seats. I mean, you're sitting, and I think it's a huge advantage. I really do. Free throws only occur small portions of the game, but when
Ask
you're
Iowa
able to
State that.
project, I know, but you're able to project. You have a large population projecting their voices directly at the middle of the court like that. That's a huge momentum piece. So, I mean, K State, I think is very smart in how they do it. But at Houston, it got pretty loud. In the Baylor game, when I went for the women's game, I mean, they had a good student population there, and it was loud in that arena for 5,000 people. So, I think that's a good middle ground, but we're pretty fortunate.
I feel like it's regional. I feel like it's regional too, because I feel like most Big Ten schools are baseline student sections.
Yeah.
Because I know Ohio State Schottenstein, they have a lot of their student sections on the baseline.
Yeah, but if you want another Texas school that does the baseline, that's TCU. They've got the Jamie Dixon weird thing with arms or whatever.
What are those, marionette?
Yeah.
That's sloth.
Why? Oh, you think he looks like Sid from Ice Age?
He looks like a sloth.
He kind of does.
I never.
Why does he look all? He always looks wet. He just took a shower.
I always took him for like a mobster, so I feel like he should be coaching at like St. John or.
I get like a Calipari Patino kind of vibe from him.
Yeah, not a Texas boy.
Yeah, so this one's from Dylan Stoss. For the future, how do you see David Castillo fitting in with Cam, Day, RJ, and Dorian Finister?
I think he's going to be fucking awesome. The problem is our fan base is, they're passionate. So you saw what Day Ames, he was a top 125 kind of, player. He was an elite ball handler in high school, and he makes the turn into being a freshman at K-State. It's not there. It's not there yet. He still has to develop. So are we expecting David Castillo to be a lottery type player and control this offense like he's a 6-year senior with a COVID year? I don't see how that's going to be possible. So he's going to have some growing pains. And if people are this, he has the expectations coming in that he has, similar to what Tyler Perry was expected to do. And Tyler Perry, for a lot of people, haven't delivered on that. So if David Castillo doesn't deliver on being the savior at point guard, I hate to see what they do to the kid.
Wow. I expected to hear that from my voice, but you said that.
That's not me. I know what I'm gonna. I expect him to be awesome and averaging 10 points and 4 assists with a 2-to-1 ratio assist to turnover. I will live with that from a freshman point guard, which what I expect him to be. I don't expect him to be Tyler Perry scoring 16 points a game and 4 assists and whatever. He's got realistic expectations for me, but I know the fan base won't. I know a lot of people on the internet are going to chew him up and spit him out, just like I will talk about football later. So
I think if his vision, his court vision is as good as they say, I think that's extremely helpful. That's just the key. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he fits in right next to a guy like Day and because Day is a point guard. I mean, and then we say Cam, we would think that Cam would come back, but he's improved this season. I'm not saying he's going to go, not going to go to the NBA draft, but I mean, he's also been in college for 4 years. So it's going to be interesting to see who stays and who isn't, who goes, with this team.
I think David Castillo and Day Ames is more what Jerome Tang wants, similar to what he had at Baylor with 2 point guards, 2 combo guards that can handle the ball, get to the basket, facilitate, and score it. Day-Day's not the best shooter, but I think David Castillo is a damn good shooter. So we'll see what that means, but I think it's more the line of what he wants.
I agree.
I like it. Moving on, Colby Works asks, rank the atmosphere for last night's game versus years past. Matt, you were the only one there, so this is for you.
Oh man, it's tough. Last year, I felt the atmosphere last year was better, but I also felt the stakes were higher because we were a top 15 team and Kansas was also in the top 5. There was an expectation that we could be competitive in that game, and we needed the atmosphere to really get us ahead. It was a very, very, very good atmosphere last night. So I thought last year's was better, and that does not disparage anything about last night. But I just felt that number one, I didn't feel last year there was as many KU fans in the arena as there was last night. It was a pretty audible KU crowd in there at times. You could tell. I was sitting in the lower bowl compared to last year, though, so I could hear that more than where I was sitting last year. Overall, I mean, Bramwich just is such a great atmosphere in these games, like these big games. So it's very hard to rank them. And I'll be biased. I thought 2010 Texas was, or 2012 KU was loud. So a lot angrier.
So the next two questions come from both of your parents. The first one comes from Frank. What is Chef's favorite bread recipe?
Man. So everybody knows I've been, dabbling in bread making. I have a bread maker that's, about as old as me. What's wrong? Did something happen?
You're dabbling.
No, it's my
Oh,
it's my dad asking this question.
Oh, well, he's a smart man and he knows what he wants to know. There's a sweetbread setting on there. Elite. You increase the butter ratio, you increase the sugar on there, make it similar to like a brioche. Oh, man. I'd made some fresh made bread for French toast on a Sunday morning. Elite. It was immaculate. So sweet bread, similar to a brioche. I think that's what they were going for. I kind of just dabbled with the recipe myself. Actually, 1 whole egg, an egg yolk, 3 cups of bread flour, 4 tablespoons of sugar, 4 tablespoons of butter, a little bit of salt. What else did I put in there? Oh, a 7/8 of a packet of yeast. I feel like that is the perfect amount of rise. So it's
All
a
right,
bread
Barefoot
recipe.
Contessa, we're good.
Your dad wanted to know. I'm giving it to him.
I'm gonna tweet
Don't
it at
you
him.
dare slander Ina Garten. Don't you dare. The last question comes from Matt's mom, Debbie. Did you join in on the FKU chant your mother wants to know? ...
No, I did not. I did not yell that. The worst thing I probably did was probably 6 or 7 rows behind us. There was this KU fan, 2 fans that continuously yelled "Rock Chalk Jayhawk" during free throws, and at
Threw
the
a
end,
slur at him.
I definitely put my middle fingers up at the guy. But that's fine, right? Like,
that's doing the Lord's work. That is
exactly
doing a public service.
Exactly. And I had to because they were very obnoxious in that game. But I did not use the F word in the game. At
Not one
KU,
time.
I did use it when I was describing what is our offense doing. But that's it.
Well, boys and girls, on that note, we are going to record an episode later this week where we're going to talk a little bit more about women's basketball and the football schedule release for the Big 12. We know it's a little bit late, but we've got our thoughts on it we want to share. So for all of us here at Cocaine Willie, thanks for listening to the show on your podcast feeds or watching us on YouTube. Do us a favor, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcast, leave us a 5-star rating and follow the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like on the video and subscribe to the channel below. We have a quick little PSA, and you've heard of college football realignment. Now, what you need to do is get ready for college podcast realignment. And coming soon, there will be a new college sports community. And we are proud to announce that Cocaine Willie will be the official Kansas State University representatives. So stay tuned for that. But that's our little teaser. You'll find out a little bit more, I think, in March and April. But you can follow the show on Twitter or Instagram or follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Fireball Matt's at Matt Marchesini, and Chef is at Chef Andre Napier. Chef, take us out.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are all coke and no joke. Wildcat Country.
Let's fucking ride, dude.
Let's ride. Sorry, Mom.
Let's fucking ride.